I'm Manfred Mohr. I'm standing here in Bitform's gallery. I live in New York since 1980. I was born in Germany many years ago. I lived 20 years in France and in Spain. But since 1980, I work here in New York. So here, Bitforms looked at my work for the last 50 years. What could we show to show your interest in algorithms? Since I started in 1969 writing my first algorithm, it was appropriate to call this 50 years of algorithm and art. I went to high school in Germany, I went to art school in Germany, and I got a scholarship for a foreign country, and I chose at the time to go to Barcelona, to Spain. I inscribed in that art school there, which was called Escuela Manzana, but after one day I never returned. That's a different question. But I played music at that time and made paintings at the time, and moved 2 years later to Paris, where I went to the Beaux-Arts and studied there lithography for a while. And then I became independent since then. I do my own thing. I always had this problem that to make a good work, you have to try 5 times to get it good. And that randomness bothered me, that I cannot control what I want to do, that I have to be lucky to get a good work. And I compared it, because at the same time I was a musician, I made my money with music. I knew I can write down an idea and I can play it whenever I want it. So why couldn't I do in art something similar, that I know before I start what I want to do? And lo and behold, I came upon a book from a German philosopher, Professor Benze, who talked about art in our time nowadays, which should be more logical, more reasonable, more, not from the stomach, but from the brain. And I thought, that's a good idea. But how would I do that? So it took me many years to figure out that what I was doing was not logical in itself, it was emotional. And to get logical, I have to think about what I want to do and be able to take it apart in pieces to see how it is built, to be reassembled, let's say, in a program, or I can communicate it to somebody, do this and do that. So that's when I was struggling to figure out. My work in the meantime became more and more geometric, but the geometry was still some sort of illusionistic abstraction without content, really. I met Pierre Barbeau, which is a French composer who wrote computer music since the late 50s. And he explained to me what programming means, that you write little subroutines with ideas and you put them together and you call them after your logic you want to do, and that creates a piece. So he showed me in his music how this works, and I suddenly understood, of course, it's exactly what I have to do. I have to figure out how can I construct something with instructions. Of course, I had to learn then programming, which is Fortran at the time, which was not so easy because there was no school or nothing at the time. So I found a book and I learned it, and luckily in the faculty in Vincennes, in the university, we had sort of some friends of mine. We created a group. We had the similar ideas. What can we do with a computer in art? Of course, we had neither computer nor nothing. So we got eventually a computer, but not a drawing machine. And so it was sort of helpless sitting there calculating things you can't do. So I saw at the French television, by luck, a program on the meteorology. The Weather Bureau just got a table traçante, that is a plotter, which draws the weather curves. I said, of course, that's what I need. And I got access to the meteorology at night, because during the day they had their own things to do. So I worked there for every night for 11 years. There is a certain level of communication which is interesting, and I, like in meteorology, the weather scientists, they are all half in the clouds anyway, so they have fantastic ideas, and we had wonderful dialogues. And I went once a week to not to this director, but some other director in the meteor. We discussed all sorts of things, and I learned things from them. Like, for example, there is this function which is called the spleen function, where you can put random numbers together and make a circle out of it. I mean, not a circle, but a sort of a closed loop, which they need for their weather, you know. So I was very fascinated in this idea. So I made drawings, which I think there's one out there, where you connect random points with their function from the weather bureau. You know? So there's a lot of level of communication, but there's also another very funny level, because when I worked at the meteorology and I used their equipment, especially the plotter, if the plotter doesn't work right, they don't know it, because then the weather is 500 miles bad this way or not. But I saw that something is not right when I told them, listen, the plotter has a problem. So I was a maintenance for free for them, in a sense. So everything went hand in hand. But the computer was a shock to me that was far beyond my knowledge, you know. So I only could use the entrance with the program. I knew what the program does, but the computer itself, I didn't really yet understand. It took me a long time to understand until in the year 2000, I built my own computers, you know. But the thing is that it is a collaboration of interests, you know, because if I suddenly want to go to the moon, I need different technologies, you know, so I have to look for it. So that was my way at the time to go to the moon. I had to find the way to the computer, you know. Art is the most fundamental language which we need to understand the world. Without this, we cannot understand anything.